Hi, this is Chris West from House Calls Vermont. How are y'all doing? It is the week of June 9th. We're going to have the show this week. We'll be talking about mechanicals, but our interview this week is with Dwight DeCoster, and Dwight DeCoster is the director of the Weatherization Program at Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, and we're really interested in hearing more about that program and about what's going on at CVOEO and in the weather assistant programs in general. So Dwight, welcome to the show.
Chris, thank you, Jim.
Yes.
And welcome, Jim. I didn't want to leave you out of that whole thing.
I'm here.
So, Dwight, I don't know how many people, I know that builders in the area know about the weather assistance programs in general. But do me a favor, give us a little bit of background on what the OEO is, what CVOEO is, and what the weatherization program is.
Okay. Weatherization program started about 40 years ago. You would think it was a energy efficiency program, but it was actually started as part of the war on poverty. The focus was, energy efficiency, but its goal was to put more money into low-income Vermonters, low-income U.S. citizens across the country, to put more money into their pockets so they would have more money to spend on groceries, medicine, housing, all of those sorts of things. So the program has been around for about 40 years. I actually have one employee that's been here since the beginning, so a lot of institutional knowledge there at CVOEO. The program is a income eligibility based program, 200% of federal poverty limit, 80% of area median income, which is, you really don't need to know those numbers.
Where's that at right now? Where's median income? Was it 120,000 for a family of four? I mean, it was.
Oh, yeah, but like 80% for Chittenden County for a family of four is like 55,000.
Okay.
It's more than that.
Okay.
So, and Chittenden is a little higher. Chittenden and Grand Isle are a little higher than Franklin and Addison, which is my service territory. Franklin, Grand Isle, Chittenden, and Addison. I'm one of six programs, including our multifamily program, spread out across the state. Nido, Capstone, Sevka, and Brock. We all have the same basic guidelines. Our program at CVOEO is the largest. We're doing about 250 homes a year. Our parent organization, or our funder, we have two. 85% of our funds come from the Vermont Home Weatherization Assistance Program. 15% come from the Department of Energy. And then there's various other fund sites that we braid together to perform what we do. The average cost that we spend on a home is about $9,500. And that includes everything from electrical efficiency on the demand side. We do cold climate H2O. We do cold climate heat. We do, refrigerators. We do freezers, dehumidifiers, light bulbs, and that's all through a partnership with Efficiency Vermont. And on the thermal side, we do air sealing, insulating, a lot of attic insulation, a lot of basement sill insulation, a lot of, massive air sealing. Seems like the trades are getting better, but, they still like to drill a 4-inch hole for a 2-inch pipe.
That's the whole, trades thing. If you're a sub and you're on my site and I'm building a house and I have to hit an air tightness number, then you own the hole. I want to know it. I want someone to check it, and it's not going to be someone from your crew in the end.
Yeah, well, we were out on a monitor with the OEO comes out and monitors us about every 6 months. They've got to do 10% of our jobs, and we went out yesterday, and one of the families had gotten a grant for a car, an electric car, and of course they had to do a bunch of electrical work for the charger. And we did this beautiful job, reduced the air infiltration by 50%, and we go down in the basement, and where they ran the electrical wire out to the garage for a 1-inch cable, there was a hole about that big, and I'm like, are you kidding me? You just get a can of foam and fill that thing back in, and everything will be good. So, and
Yeah.
I couldn't leave it, so I filled it.
Well,
Sure.
thank you for filling that hole. That is a challenge for job sites. When you have a busy job site, you've got a tight window of opportunity. You've got people, especially new builds. I mean, retrofits you can control a little better, I think. But on new builds, you've got 3 different subs on the site, and if you haven't had that training, if you haven't sat them all down and said, "Look, this house has to be this," we've gone through the expense of making sure that if it's too tight, we're going to put mechanical balance ventilation in, and if we're going to do that, then you better check your penetrations. That brings up a very good question though on. So I spoke as a part of what I'm doing for the Vermont Home Builders Association and our development of an apprenticeship program for our members. I spoke to the WAP directors of all 5 of the WAP programs in the state, and got a feeling for the size of their operation, as it were. And you and I haven't had that conversation before, so I just wanted to go over a couple of questions. How many people do you have employed on weatherization crews?
As of this morning, which I'm very excited that I added 2 new folks this morning, which, as you know, in the workforce is a bit of a challenge. I now have 28 folks that work for me.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is evenly split between crew chiefs and crew installers, those folks that actually do the real work, and the rest of us who do all of the prep work to get them to that point.
Okay.
So our admin staff and our tech, what we call the tech staff, which is our auditors and our efficiency coaches, and our QCI, so an admin. So
right.
Yeah,
so how many of those are actual people in the? We used to say. I mean, we often say in the parlance of builders, who's swinging a hammer, but I guess who's pulling nasty old fiberglass attics? How many people out of that 28 do that?
Well, that's 14.
Okay.
And we are lucky in that. One thing I didn't mention, we are lucky and we are the only weatherization program in the state of Vermont who has their own heat tech on site.
Okay.
So he does about a third of our work in new installs of pretty much everything except for heat pumps, and all of our does clean and tunes, installations, repairs, and that allows us to have more flexibility on our schedule.
So that, just to be clear, that is an HVAC specialist on site to actually do the work that's mechanically based.
Right, correct. He's a licensed heating guy that does all the mechanical stuff. We do our own tin knocking. Basically, the crews are able to do their own tin knocking. They're able to put in, add duct, add return, add supply wherever needed, because that's a major dysfunction that we see in the world out there in Vermont. Yeah, it's really helpful. Plus, he's a plumber, so that helps. We find lots of leaks.
Sure. Now, with Dwight, you mentioned 85% of your funding comes from the Vermont Home Weatherization Program. Do you find that program is connected in a logical way to other funding sources? Because we see so many times that there is a big disconnect between what this person's doing and that person's doing. And quite honestly, until we talked the other day, I did not know the full width and breadth of what you guys were doing, which was heartening. But I'm sitting here thinking again, does everybody know what everyone else is doing when they're trying to pass an initiative through that's going to affect the entire state, whether it's low income or moderate income or above? Does everybody know that we're all on the same page, that we're all going in the same direction? And what do you see in that regard?
I don't think that we're all rowing in the same boat necessarily. And An example of that is one of our major time consumption areas over the last 2 years has been with the new above ground storage tank policies, which has affected low-income Vermonters tremendously.
Sure.
The average cost to replace for, like, in a mobile home situation where you've got a 250-gallon outdoor storage tank standing under the eaves, that in all of those, there's very few that are ever going to pass the current standard. It's $2,400. How is a low-income Vermonter going to do that?
Sure.
Well, since it took us a while, but we got a process in place where we're able to use LIHEAP under the crisis heat program funds to do that. But that's just one example. And then also that this year especially, we're going to throw a lot of money at it, but we're not there yet because we don't have the workforce developed. So it's a little, it's a lot of catch up. Oh no, that money's not available anymore. But like, as I said before, we do braid a lot of funds together. Like we have Efficiency Vermont funds. We have funds from VLIGHT, Vermont Low Income Trust Fund for Electric. We have some private grant funds. And LIHEAP funds. It comes from all over, and it's a bit challenging to braid that all together to
Sure
we do. But there is the market in the state of Vermont is not 100% in the same line yet. And that's where we got to be if we really want to hit our goals.
One thing Chris has said along those lines, you mentioned LIHEAP, is that sometimes we heard where some of the funding was going to help pay for heating assistance during the winter, which is understandable. But without properly weatherizing the home, Chris would often say, you might as well put half of the money out in the field and set it on fire, and because it's not going the right direction. So knowing that they are invested as well is not just paying for a leaky house to be heated, but also to stop that house from being leaky is great to hear that. Sure.
I think what I literally said is you're literally burning money.
Yes.
That was my term at the time. Yeah.
And that is the case. I mean, it's, we're giving this money to folks that have not had their house weatherized. And
Sure.
that's no fault of theirs because
Of course not, yeah.
the program is, we're not robust enough to take care of all those folks at one time. I mean, I heard a statistic the other day, and I don't know how strong it is that there was 2,900 homes weatherized through weatherization programs in the country in a year. Jeff Wilcox told me this from OEO at the Home Builders Association conference. 900 of those were in Vermont.
Jeez.
That's scary.
Vermont is way ahead of the power curve. We do a great job, great installers, but we continue to build houses that have holes in them, and we don't have solar on new homes. And we're trying to patch the holes, so to speak, where the money's running out of homes. So.
Well, that brings me to an interesting question there, Dwight. How many of the homes that you're going into are 5 or less years old?
Not very many. I will say that. But I will say that we can unless we go into a home that is built by somebody schooled in building sciences, we spend money in that home to bring it up to speed, to bring up the energy efficiency code, what is passable.
Yeah.
We can fix any house, other than the very newest ones that are being built to the current energy code.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there's two things that come to mind there. One is going to be that you mentioned about what we're doing across the nation, and so much attention is given here in Vermont and the Northeast and in the northern parts of our country is because it gets cold. And people don't even, I went through the epiphany myself because I came from much warmer climates originally from San Diego, California, where I was building, and also Florida. And you came up here and you were thinking about, okay, preventing the cold from getting in. And then I got a call from a customer one time after doing a lot of weatherization work. And she said, we can finally sleep in our master bedroom in the summer. And I said, oh, of course, this work will work all year round. And they were actually in Vermont suffering from a superheated attic area where their master bedroom was. And so, in the warmer climates, I think that people are ignoring the fact that weatherization is important there. Vapor drive is very important there, which leads to mold, which leads to indoor air quality issues and all these things. And it can't just be this, if only 2,900 homes are being done in the entire nation for weatherization, oh my gosh, the opportunity, especially for low-income individuals that live in those areas, there's a great need for it across the country, no matter what the climate range would be.
Well, the saying, the cobbler's kids wear no shoes. Well, the weatherization director just air sealed and insulated his attic and gable and sidewalls this past fall. Yep. And, the winter was tremendous. We saw 20 to 25% reduction every month in our natural gas bill.
Great.
But yesterday was the first time that I put the air conditioner in the window because my wife said to. But we shut it off at 9:30 because the bedroom was so cold.
That's great.
There you go.
So the same exact building science principles that work on the heating side, the thermal efficiency side, work for cooling. It's the same exact thing. So these building science principles and the techniques that we're using, spread them across the country, and we'll save a ton of resources.
Yeah,
and that's how I talk about it a lot. Is I talk about resource preservation.
Yes.
Whether it's a natural resource or financial resource.
And human resources.
That's where I try to. If you get somebody there's a few people out there that are resistant to the climate change and energy efficiency, I go to the resource side and start talking about dollars and natural resources, and that changes things quite a bit for them, usually.
Agreed.
Yeah, I always say a thermos keeps your cocoa warm in the winter and keeps your iced tea cool in the summer. It's about transfer of heat over a plane, and so if we're making our houses more energy efficient for the winter, we're definitely going to see benefits in comfort in the summer as well. We're talking about having some major changes in the state, right? We're talking about lots of dollars flowing from the feds, which are going to be applied in a number of different places. But one of the places they're talking about is increasing budgets for programs like yours. And just to be clear, the WAP programs, except for Capstone, all of the WAP programs are working with people who are getting these services because they fall under those economic guidelines that you explained. So as a person who is an owner, say I'm an owner of a house and I fall under those guidelines, just bring us quickly through the process that someone would see. And the point that I want to bring up is this work is all done free of charge to them as a part of the state and federal programs to increase the energy efficiency of houses for people living under those conditions.
Correct, Chris. Free of charge. So the process that a client's going to see is that in some way they're going to fill out an application, whether they're on the LIHEAP, and we send out an invitation to folks that are on the fuel assist list every year. That's one of our major outreach programs in the summertime. Whether you've heard about it from a neighbor, whether somebody that we just weatherized has recommended a neighbor for the service, or one of the other state agencies or charitable type organizations has forwarded your name to us. We get you an application, you fill it out. It's unfortunately it is a lengthy process to do that because of federal guidelines. A lot of work on the client's part to get there. We're lucky to have Deborah Gira on our staff, who is very good at getting clients through that process. So once you've deemed eligible, you're going to go into a waiting list. 5 years ago when I got here, we had about 3 years worth of people on the waiting list. We're down to about 9 months now, which I'm very, very excited by that.
Sure.
So the first person you're going to see once you've completed eligibility and risen to the top of the priority list is an efficiency coach. Now they're going to go out and look at your demand side, your electric, everything that uses electricity. How can we make that better? As I said before, refrigerators, freezers, dehumidifiers is a big one. Light bulbs, your water heating if it's electric. How do we do that better? And that's in partnership with Efficiency Vermont. They, through their program, we're a field implementer, I call it. We, for low income, we put that where it needs to go. So once that process is completed, you're going to go to an auditor. And I forgot to mention, an efficiency coach, there's a lot of client education that goes on there. So that's why we split those two up. We feed them a lot of stuff about how to be more efficient in habits as well as appliances and devices. So the second phase you're going to see is the actual building auditor. One of our audit crew, we have 4 on staff, is going to come out to the home and spend almost a half a day testing and the air leakage rate and the efficiency of your furnace and how is your ventilation working. All of those things are all tested. Walls are probed, attic is looked at. What is your current air exchange number, and what is your current insulation level? Then they come back and they spend usually 6 to 8 hours writing up a work scope. hey, we're going to do sills, we're going to do the attic, we're going to blow the sidewalls. Oh, by the way, we got to work lead safe because this is a home older than 1975.
Sure.
And we have to, there's a little bit of vermiculite that we might have to, oh, and by the way, the roof leaks and the chimney needs fire, there's a whole bunch of other things. So they write up a work scope, a very thorough work scope. We do everything on the job that has a savings to investment ratio of 1. So for every dollar we spend, it has to save a dollar. Except for health and safety measures, which we do out of hand just because they need to be done. We send that work scope to the client. They sign off on it and allow us okay to weatherize letter. They say, okay, come on in. You're on the schedule. The crew goes out and does all of that work. Usually we spend an average of 3 to 5 days on site. It's a very intrusive process for the homeowner. We're in every bit of their home, so it's a little nerve-wracking. And then once that work is done, we have the final stages, our quality control inspector. Usually Mr. Larry Martell goes out, and he's the reason I sleep at night as comfortably as I do, because I know that the job is done correctly and we're not going to hurt anybody and we're not going to hurt the home. So there's no moisture issues going to happen if the client follows the instructions.
Well, anybody who's going to put like 5, saltwater fish tanks in the living room, not expect things to change. But people don't think about that. We've seen that in the field.
Well, we talk about, you go into some of these homes and they have 30 or 40 plants, or they have 4 or 5 dogs, or they have, like you said, fish tanks, open fish tanks. One of the things we do is we have a allowable measurable. We close off we buy a hood for that fish tank. Now, whether they keep it in place or not, who knows?
Right.
So
the thing that ruins houses is occupants, right?
Yes. Well, most of it, but I will say that there is also a lot of there's been a lot of building practices that were not to building science standards that we continue to fix.
Yeah.
So, which I know that your organization is working to get better as well.
And Dwight, one thing I had a question with too on this, it's almost like there needs to be a separate funding stream for measures for indoor air quality, because once these houses are weatherized, and let's say, as Chris mentioned, there's going to be this impetus of cash, federally speaking, to help these homes get weatherized. My biggest concern is that the broader picture is not taken into consideration, and then if the house is really tight, great, it's not leaking out expensive energy or heated air, but then the indoor air quality, have we addressed that appropriately? Not just a backdrafting furnace, but more so, what about an ERV or an HRV? And those components are not inexpensive, especially a good one, a well-balanced one. You could be looking at a minimal cost of $5,000 up to $20,000, depending on the size of the house. And then that's not even considering the retrofit situation of what you have to do to open up walls and things like that. How are you, as the program is concerned, able to address those issues when you are tightening up homes? And is there any kind of, on the horizon type of initiative to help improve that? Because the whole health and safety comes into consideration with, the occupant's health, not just before it's weatherized, but after it's weatherizing, you can get concentrated levels of some of these, particulates and CO2 and things like that. What is the outlook for the program in that regard?
Well, currently we are only doing point source, and we've done a few pilot projects with EBT funding to put in HRVs or ERVs. I can't remember which one we put in. Obviously, we were not able to put in a 5,000, the very high end one, but we use point source, and we use the ASHRAE standard. DOE requires us to do the ASHRAE standard, so we bring that over to the Home Weatherization Assistance Program jobs as well, HWAP. But we use point source ventilation and in the bathrooms, we use a smart switch, which basically, we determine the leakage rate of the house, the number of occupancies, the number of occupants, and set that up. And most of those are running, a half hour on the hour, or, to try to bring in a fresh stream of air. And hopefully, if we've done our job correctly, we've minimized where that air is coming from.
Right.
It's not coming from the attic or from the basement. We tend to leave our sidewalls a little bit leaky so that air is coming in through a relatively clean source as opposed to dirty, nasty attics or basements. So that's the current strategy. I do see probably at some point HRVs and ERVs coming down the road is standard.
Yeah.
But we're not really, we're not creating super high because we're in a retrofit situation without doing a lot of extensive demo. We're not creating anything that's too, dangerous at this point.
Right. What they call too tight.
Yeah.
To be healthy. So, I mean, I can imagine Jim and I, do market rate audits and recommendations for houses all the time. And we have seen houses on the edge. Like we've been in 2 houses in the last couple of months where they were 2.25 air changes or lower. And they were saying, I can't get my wood stove to stay on. And we're like, yeah, we get it. That's recognizable. But the majority, like the vast majority of houses that we're in are houses where you could do a 50% reduction and you're still way above the 2 or 3 air changes per hour that are the thresholds for installing mechanical ventilation. But the new versions of code that are coming out are almost certainly requiring balanced mechanical ventilation for all new builds. We're in negotiations on the happen to be on one of the advisory committees for the next edition of code, or iteration, and that's something that we incorporated last time and will be now here this time. So knowing that you're going to be building a house that's going to be much more energy efficient and having a good resource for subs and lists of mechanicals. Efficiency Vermont has great programs for that. I got to say, we are the envy of most of the country when it comes to that type of support. So shouts out to Efficiency Vermont for all that great work they do. The program that you're running is, you were saying it's a state and a DOE based thing. So you have certain reporting requirements for the Department of Energy, if I remember you saying that correctly. And that has got downsides, but it also has top sides. I mean, you guys have also got this 220-page manual that all of the WAPs use for training people. So tell us a little about your recruitment process, what your goals are for ramping up your production. I mean, you've got a crew of 14. You're doing more, from what I've seen, the most number of houses in weatherization assistance program in the state. You also happen to be in one of the most populated areas of the state. That makes sense. But if this money flows in, where are you going for your new hires? Do you have special new hire programs, like incentives for people who are already in the working for you, and what is the actual process for training them?
Well, I got kind of a shotgun recruiting effort going on right now, where I am talking to just about everybody I can possibly talk to. One of my best sources is the resource program and their building trades program.
Sure.
Mostly working with adults, making a change in career. We have we just hired one Mumin Saeed that came out of their program. We have a former graduate that started today, Kasim Mo Hassan. Yeah. And next week we have another one of their candidates coming for a work experience. So they do basic training, which includes OSHA 10, basic building science tool, NCCER. Don't ask me what that acronym stands for. I know National and Construction is in there somewhere, but they do lead safe and basic tools. So they come to us without a lot of weatherization experience, but they come to us with basic hand skills, which is what we're looking for. We want to make sure that they're safe and can read a tape measure and have some understanding of how building works. I just got off a meeting last week with Northland, and we're looking at some of their graduates possibly. And then, well, another equally successful place is that I asked my staff, hey, do you have any friends that you'd like to work with every day that would make a good member of the team that fits our mission? That, if you buy into our mission, which is saving the world one house at a time, basically, we will train you. And so that training comes from a number of areas. In the past, it's, been on-the-job training primarily. But we also go out to the national conferences, and we have we have a monthly training in-house. But for this ramp up, this massive ramp up that we have no idea how big it's going to be, because we don't know what the budget looks like. We don't know how much is coming down to us. We know what our HWAP is. We know what our DOE is, but we don't know what our new LIHEAP money is. There's a lot there. If you read the budget, we just don't know how much that's coming to us. So
Sure.
we're a little bit challenged by the size of the ramp up. So in preparation for that, OEO has given us great support. You mentioned the 200 and some odd page technical manual, which is the basis for everything we do. It's the standards that we hold ourselves up to per home. That obviously is the center of our training program. And we have what's called the passport, the training passport now, where they give us training money for 90 days, for 3 months. And we have this passport that takes the technical manual, puts it into a 5-page document that we have one of our experienced crew members work right alongside with that new employee and make sure that they gain mastery of his. You're not going to gain mastery of weatherization in 90 days. It's not just throwing some single part foam and some cellulose into an attic. It's much more technical than that. But it's good. That employee at 90 days, the new employee is going to be with this new program, they're going to be far more up to speed, far more focused, and far more productive than a haphazard OJT.
So essentially the basis of an apprenticeship program in the field.
Correct. Exactly. It's an OJT, on-the-job training, apprentice. We don't have a specific time when you go, okay, you are now a crew installer, or you're a master installer, all that stuff. But
sure.
So, yeah, we've got the first two employees today that are going to be entered into that program, and it's brand new to us because, fortunately, CVOEO, we set a culture and have a great mission, and we haven't had a lot of turnover.
So with that, I have a couple questions there. In doing a lot of this work myself, knowing that this is not glamorous work, it can be very nasty work. It can be challenging work, especially when you're in a nasty basement, a hot attic, whatever. But it becomes a satisfying measure as well as when you can see on the other side of things, when you do that final blower door test, or you do the follow-up a year later, and like the feedback you just gave us about your own home, seeing that, my gosh, I turned the air conditioner on, but I had to turn it off, that on some of the warmer days that we've had recently. I mean, that's part of the satisfying part of the work. Is that something, for these new individuals, in trying to entice them to come into this field? Is it commensurate with pay? Is it the income levels being above minimum wage? Is it, what excites some of what's the draw, I guess, that you're looking to communicate to potential applicants to the career field?
Well, we pay our folks $18 an hour to start.
Oh, wow.
That's not bad.
No.
Full benefits, vision, dental, health, life, all that stuff. There's a small 401k program.
Wow.
I say that we have a program that as an employee, I love my time off program between vacation, sick, and personal. But as a manager, I hate it because we give so much time off, 13 paid days. Yeah. But in the past, that was a selling feature, and we work year round, no layoffs. I mean, we're completely full on year round. Like June right now, we are completely no time off in June. Yeah, sure. Because we're close to our end of the contract. And my employees hate me for that, but it's what we do.
Yeah.
But that's what everybody's having to do lately. Yesterday I was and I hate to say this, but yesterday I was at Walmart and I was walking up the side of the road and they're offering $26 an hour to be a stocker or a cashier.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, how do I compete with that? Well, that's the other part that I need to sell. Yeah. I guarantee you that if I can get somebody to come work for me in my culture, that they're going to stay here because of our culture and our mission. Mm-hmm. The first time you stand in the driveway at the end of 5 days working in an older couple's house and the woman is in tears, the lady of the house is in tears because of what you've done for her, and she gives you a hug and you're sobbing, you're sold.
Yeah.
So that's what we have. That's what I sell. That's what I try to teach people about. Our mission, our culture here, we're, everybody says it, but we are a family. We take care of each other. And those are the two things that we have to do. We have to sell them on that. CVOEO weatherization is a great place to work because everybody takes care of each other. And B, the mission, you are making an impact every single day, not only in that family's life that you're working in, but in the world. We've been saying, like our tagline, saving the world one house at a time. We've been saying it for years, and it's true. I mean, when you get a third reduction in buildings' energy costs, the ramifications of that are huge.
And will become more pronounced as oil rises in price again. We just hit 70 gallons a barrel for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic. So we all remember 2013 when fuel oil was $5 a gallon and people were literally making the decision between eating and heating. And usually heating was the one that didn't get paid for. People living in 50-degree temperature houses in the middle of a Vermont winter and wearing their outside clothes inside. So this is good work, absolutely.
Example of that, Chris. An example of that, Chris, is 2 years ago we were sitting in some folks' kitchens with the state monitor, and I did not pay the clients to say this at all.
Yeah.
But we were sitting at the kitchen table, and they said that this older couple, both of them were disabled, and they weren't, they were in their early 60s. They were within 2 months of having to give up their house. And the work that we did there, put an extra $300-400 a month back into their pocket, maybe not that much, but, from what we were doing and making the house more livable, and we saved them a lot of repairs. That meant that those folks were going to be able to age in place. And I don't know if any of you have ever looked at what it costs for an elder person, and we're going through it right now, to be in care, residential care.
Yeah.
It's $6,000 to $8,000 a month. Now, where does that money come from?
Yeah.
It doesn't come from, most folks cannot afford that on their own. So that's another great mission, is we allow older folks to age in place and stay out of residential care longer because A, it's less expensive, and B, it's much more healthy. We leave homes in much better health conditions for the occupants by the time we're done.
Yeah, that's something Jim and I are always speaking on. There's no way to quantify the overall health benefits of a healthier house because we don't have the data on how it's affecting them before the house is made better. So, but I think you're absolutely right, Dwight. That's definitely a benefit that we can call on: improved indoor air quality, improved durability, lower incidence of mold and mildew and all the other contaminants that we may not know are causing us issues, but are certainly doing that.
There's some great work being done out there right now on weatherization and how it impacts asthma and COPD and any other lung or heart problems. The numbers are absolutely fantastic and so powerful that we're doing pilots with hospitals and insurance companies right now.
Great.
We call it RX for WX, prescription for weatherization, where if you've got somebody with COPD or asthma, that weatherization comes in and does all the standard things that we normally do, but then we look at those contaminants, carpeting, those sorts of things.
Sure.
And the numbers are just phenomenal as to lowered absenteeism for both adults at work and children at school, as well as emergency room visits being lowered, because quite frankly, a lot of low-income Vermonters don't have insurance. Their only option is to go to the emergency room, which, as we know, is way more expensive than regular care. So it's huge.
Well, we are. I think we could probably talk for another hour. We're having a great time here, but we're easily 40 minutes in this interview, and I did want to just at the very end give you an opportunity to talk about the ramp up and what your hopes and dreams are for how many. I mean, are you looking at? I know it's all very murky because you don't know what the funding is, but given your druthers, Are you looking at a doubling of your crew? You're looking at a 3 times increase in your crew? What have you been, batting around the cage there?
Well, I've been super nervous, actually. The numbers that we're seeing in the budget look like it's about 3 times what our current budget is over the next 15 months, which is a bit daunting. And I've been testifying before the legislature for the last 5 years on both workforce and cautious ramp up. And I know we need to ramp up, but what we would like to see is a gradual ramp up to allow us to continue to do the high level of service that we do, and not just spend money to spend money.
Agreed.
That we have to spend that money smartly, or if you remember, there were some, not in Vermont, but there were some issues around ARA funding back after when we started out of the recession with the Obama years. The ARA funding, there was a lot of money thrown at it, and some of that money was not spent well. I will leave it at that. We've only changed one letter, and now it's ARPA. And if we're not careful, we will be spending some money that's not carefully spent. And I'm a taxpayer. And I run this place like a business. I make every decision based on whether I can look a taxpayer in the face and say it's good money spent. And so our ramp up needs to allow that to happen.
Sure.
We need to have ramp up, a time period of how long we're going to run it like that, and then a time period to ramp down, so that we're not just dumping folks on the street, again, because we don't have the funds to do it. That's against what I stand for, and I know it's against what the state program stands for. We just want to have a smooth ramp up to a sustainable level, and sustainable with the current market or labor force. And then if we ramp down, that ramp down is gradual. Doubling is scary. Tripling is a cause of nightmares. Because I'm spending 30 to 50% of my time right now trying to recruit employees.
Right.
And
the market is not good. So we're looking at every possible way to recruit. So
yeah, the other day, Dwight, there was a report in the Wall Street Journal that said every available person that can work, there's 3.6 jobs calling for their attention. So that's hard, because you just don't have the people there to do the work. So bringing those people in, it's a big task for sure.
Yeah.
It's not just our industry either. I mean, my wife's in the childcare industry. They have a 65 child daycare, and they have a hard time finding teachers. And the reason is because those teachers are moving around. They're getting better offers, no different than construction workers.
Exactly.
Get a better offer, you're going to go to do that if you can better yourself with it.
Yeah.
Walmart, $26 to stock shelves, man. That's challenging.
That feels like a bubble. I would not mind that being like the new reality, but I think that's certainly something that will not be sustainable for something like a Walmart for long, for stockers, especially since they're already looking at robots, right? I don't know what a robot's costing them per hour, but they work 24/7 and they don't need healthcare or sick leave or any of that stuff. Well, Dwight, like I said, I think we should definitely have you back on at some point in the near future for an update. And also just we seem to be kindred spirits on the building science side. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us. And by the way, if there's anybody out there who's looking for a job, we've got Dwight's contact information. He's looking, and I'm really excited about the opportunities that this money is going to bring. But I'm really glad that you're also looking at the ramp down, because that's something that as a state, we historically have lots of blips of money where we have 2.5 years of all this money, and the state goes forward with either half-baked projects just to make sure that the money doesn't disappear, or doesn't think about the tail end when that money disappears, when we have all these people in place to continue doing something there's no money to pay them for. So I appreciate that wisdom that you're spreading there.
Yeah, I try. It's challenging, but we gotta make it long lasting and effective, and not just sustainable is the word I use all the time. We got to be sustainable.
Yeah,
but the skill sets that a person would learn working in your side of the industry You could say it's entry level. They could stay with you. They could grow in that field. But if you did depart, you have a skill set, though, that's going to translate into so many other industries. And it's a great starting point. And so if somebody's looking at getting into this, it's not a losing proposition. It's a win-win, because you're going to, yes, do great work while you're there. And if you decided to go into construction, geez, that's the type of builder I want to see. I want to see them trained in this side of things before they build something or renovate something, so they know what to look for, not just replace life in kind and have the same level of failure again. Let's do it right. And so that's what this type of education is offering an individual looking to get into this career field.
Yeah.
Yep, we offer growth right within our company. I tell the story of, I have three. Now I can't remember the program. Reach Up ladies that work for me. They were all hired. They've all been promoted, and they're all on their way up. So
Wonderful.
We have opportunity for growth.
Awesome. Well, Dwight, I think that's all we have time for today, but thank you so much for taking your time out to speak with us, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the link for the video when it's up, and we'll definitely look back, because I really want to hear how you guys are developing that program, how that's going, what ends up being decided. I know a bill was not passed, but the money is still there, so they're going to throw that into some kind of process where they can get that money to you. So thanks again, and until next time, this is Chris West for House Calls Vermont, and we'll see you next week.